Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. If you have a mom, you'll love our podcasts.
Why cannot we see ourselves? Oh, we see it right there.
Carm, the show has started, and you're asking why you can't see yourself, which just proves once again what a diva you are.
What a narcissistic loser I am.
Unbelievable. Caught right on camera asking why you can't see yourself. You don't need to see yourself. Now, last night, there's a couple things I want to talk about real quickly.
Oh my God.
I'm at work covering a woman that was attacked and dragged into
Don't go into detail because I swear
No, I'm not. But I start getting photos from my wife when I'm an hour and a half.
Okay, but I'm not interested. I'm not interested. Skip this part.
Before my three children, before my wife, before Ethelbug Johnson, everyone knows there was Mabel Rose, my beloved 15-and-a-half-year-old pug.
Nobody cares.
Everyone cares. And I start getting photos of blood in her urine on the wee-wee pads, on the carpet. I get home. I rush to an emergency vet. 24 hours. It was just a urinary tract infection.
Was this worth reporting to the
She
group?
turns 16 next week. The podcast would have ended effectively before today if I had received different news. Now, you and I had a pretty deep conversation, which honestly, if I think about, I could start to weep. We interviewed a guest that you're going to hear in a moment. I'm going to tell you about. And you see his passion. And I am going through a midlife crisis, and we're going to discuss this post-show.
Oh, God, now again he will talk about himself. I can't take it.
And you said to me, you don't know what you want. And I'm 52 years old. And
Joel,
it's true.
you are in a midlife crisis, and I'm not doing it on the air.
It hit me like
I am not doing it on the air.
It hit me like a bowling ball being shot out of a cannon.
Guys, you want to see me walk out of here the first time?
We're going to discuss this, and it's true. It hit.
Okay,
the truth
go to
hurts.
the next.
I don't know what I want because I need something creative in my life.
Joel, I am not interested.
Coming up, you're going to meet a man with extreme passion. His name is Greg Zuckerman.
We already heard him, and he's
absolutely
and his book is
phenomenal.
unbelievable.
He has a book that's out right now.
I have to show you guys.
The book is called A Shot to Save the World. It is the definitive book by a 25-year Wall Street Journal veteran, Greg Zuckerman, who wrote this book, A Shot to Save the World.
By the way, he had
definitive book about the inside story of the life or death race for a COVID-19 vaccine. And we will have
He's a New York Times best-selling author.
Something I can't say about myself. You know what I am?
How did you get into this picture?
Joel Waldman, a mediocre journalist no one's ever heard of. We'll be right back with Greg Zuckerman on the main Schmooze.
What did you accomplish by this statement? Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main Schmooze.
So, Carm, we are both not double vaccinated. We are what they call triple vaxxed. You got your booster before me because you're slightly older. Actually, I think I got my booster before you because in Florida, anything goes. But I was brave enough to go to UFC 267 in Las Vegas, and Mike Littman, one of my best friends in the world, said, you know what? I'm getting the booster shot. You should too. So 9 hours before I got on a plane, I got the booster shot. I felt like absolute shit for 2 days going into the fight. And I do say going into the fight because I consider myself a fighter, even though I just watch them. And when we were there, Mike Littman says to me, oh yeah, I didn't get it. I just thought I would get it, but I didn't get it. I feel great. The person we have on today arguably knows more about the vaccine than anyone on this globe. And there's 7 billion people. Are you excited about this?
I am very excited, and I'm going right away on record that other than the last 10 pages, I read the entire book, page by page, word by word, and I took notes, and I'll have to show off of all the things
And that is because you're retired and I'm still working in news. So for full disclosure, I have read excerpts, but not the entire book. But we now welcome to Surviving the Survivor, Greg Zuckerman. Greg, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey guys, nice to be here.
So let me tell the audience a little bit about Greg Zuckerman. Most recently authored the best-selling book, A Shot to Save the World. You think you know about the vaccine, you don't know jack. But luckily, Greg knows absolutely everything, and he's about to tell you and share his knowledge. A Shot to Save the World chronicles the race to develop a COVID vaccine, one of the most exciting dramas in all of medical history. Greg is also not just the author of the book, but a special writer at the Wall Street Journal, a little paper you may have heard of, a 20-year veteran of the newspaper, and a 3-time winner of the Gerald Loeb Award, which is the highest honor in business journalism. So there, CNBC. He's written a bazillion other books as well. He's obviously an incredibly brilliant, smart, intelligent man because he graduated from Brandeis University, which is my alma mater, 91, baby. But what makes him really stand out as a super cool dude is the fact that he is from the WO, West Orange, New Jersey. Greg, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. I'm going to jump right into this and throw you a curveball and ask you a question you probably do not know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Did this virus start in a lab in Wuhan?
I don't believe so. I would say there's probably a 90% chance that it spilled over from an animal, much like earlier coronaviruses, much like most pathogens, HIV. There's about a 10% chance that it leaked out of the lab. I don't think it was created in the lab. To think that the Chinese created a lethal virus and then were so smart and confident that it wasn't going to spread throughout China and just spread in the West, it seems a little far-fetched. It's possible that there was some sort of accident involved. Again, like a 10% chance, but more likely, I'm an Occam's razor guy. It's most likely that it came from an animal.
It means I need to stop listening to Joe Rogan. And I only listen to him for one reason, because we are going to take over his numbers when it comes to podcasts.
You are our 40th or 41st person. So we are now veterans, okay?
Nice.
So, Greg, not to cut off my mother, and we have a ongoing competition about who interrupts who most, and we'll let you tell us who you think did that by the time we're done with this interview. But in writing this book, and I want to get to how you even knew where to start and how this whole process began, but in writing the book, did you run into problems because of how highly political the vaccine issue has become?
Not during the research, because my book is primarily focused on the scientists, the researchers, the companies, the executives, the investors, all the people responsible for these vaccines, the process, the drama behind the scenes, both in the years leading up to 2020, but also what happened last year. And frankly, they and I kind of figured, okay, once these vaccines have been produced and authorized and approved, people would embrace them. And I was wrong. And they were wrong too. So yeah, most of the people have, but a certain percentage of the populace is wary. So that's come as something of a surprise. So that didn't really hurt me in terms of my research. I have done speeches and media, and you run into that, you encounter those issues in that regard. And I enjoy actually talking to vaccine hesitant people, discussing the issues with them. But yeah, it didn't really affect the writing of the book.
But they're wary, not just because of medical concerns, but don't you agree that politics has seeped into the train of thought?
Yeah, sadly, everything is political today. Everything is tribal. If you like the vaccines, then I can't like them, even if they can save me and help me, you're on the other side of the spectrum, political spectrum, and vice versa. Listen, there are two types of anti-vaxxers. There are the people that think that Bill Gates put a computer chip in our brain, which, you can't really reason with. But there are other people that are wary for good reasons. I mean, historically, it takes years and years to develop a vaccine. The average vaccine took 10 years to develop, and the fastest one ever was 4 years, mumps, until last year. So I get those kinds of people. I like talking to those people, and I enjoy having a conversation, and I reassure them. I think my book is very reassuring in that regard, because my book is about the years of work that went into these vaccine approaches, and I explain why it happened so quickly last year. So I think some people are reassured by that.
So why did it happen so quickly last year? And let's take just Carm, you're going to get your chance. I promise. I promise you. You're going to get your chance. I
sure hope so.
But let's. People's memories are incredibly short, especially mine, and everything becomes a blur to me. So when I guess it was March of 2020, is that right, or February of 2020 when COVID really started to spiral out? But when did it become evident that people have got to get their ass in gear, and the science world has to come up with a vaccine, a solution to stop the spread? When did that first start?
So it's interesting. The people I talk to within the companies, the researchers, we're talking about Moderna and BioNTech, Pfizer, all that kind of stuff. They were nervous in January 2020 when most of us weren't. I was flying around the world. I was in Heathrow. I was in Israel. I was not wearing a mask. Wasn't that worried. But they were. These researchers were in January. But then comes March of 2020, and we're all beginning to be locked down. I was in my basement office in New Jersey. We couldn't work anymore in New York City. And the interesting thing is the researchers were becoming encouraged while we were becoming discouraged. So they thought they had early indications that their vaccines were going to work. They weren't sure yet. They still needed to test them, et cetera. So it was a weird dichotomy there. They were becoming encouraged when we were all kind of getting scared, or I was getting scared. And to your question, why was it so fast? Well, first and foremost, things were done simultaneously for the first time ever. So historically, you develop a vaccine, it could take years. You test the vaccine, also takes a long time. You manufacture a vaccine, that takes a really long time. And you would never manufacture a vaccine before it was approved. Why would you spend billions and billions of dollars to do that? And yet we did last year, and we did things simultaneously. All those phases were done at the same time. So it wasn't like they were rushed in any way. It wasn't like they cut corners, and people need to know that. It just that there was money available. There was money from the government. There was money from investors, money from Wall Street. So we were able to do things simultaneously. And that's the key reason why it was done so quickly.
Carm, I wish you'd raise your hand in real life instead of just telling me stuff all the time. But go on.
Okay, I will do that in real life too. It's interesting in the book at the point where the scientists heard first rumors of China and so forth, that there was this virus. First, they didn't even know if it was a bacteria or virus. Then, when they found out it's virus, one of the interesting things to me, and it must be interesting to you as a Wall Street Journal journalist, that there were issues of money too. There were prior to that explosion of the virus, there were serious money issues. I mean, they spent more time, the executives spent more time just trying to scrounge around for money than working on the other aspects of their companies. And then when it happened, it's interesting that Pfizer refused to use government money. And that's the reason it got ahead of Moderna, right or wrong?
It's a great point. So my book is about science, but it's just as much about money. And it's not just over the past year or so with COVID, but I write about the pressures that all these researchers felt or feel to raise money. Even in the government researchers, the academic researchers, it's all about money. And even when they raise money, they get a grant, they're worried about the next grant and where their money is going to come from in the future. It really was astounding and startling. And yes, it's a really great point. So as recently as May 2020, Moderna was running out of money, didn't have money to produce the vaccines. They had a pretty effective vaccine, they thought, but they didn't have the cash for it. And yeah, they eventually got the money from Wall Street, from investors. And then they got money from the government, like you said, Operation Warp Speed. And Pfizer didn't take money from Warp Speed, at least to develop its vaccines. And that is why Pfizer overtook the competitors and became the first to have a vaccine. Yeah.
It reminded me of a horse race. Because they were like the four major players were racing each other, like the one in England, the AstraZeneca and so forth.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And I have a question before we go any further.
Sure.
This is a yeoman's job just to research this, and you did it in a very relatively short period of time, from the appearance of the virus until the appearance of your book was a very short time. It had to be printed.
I can tell you the answer to how it happened.
How?
Look at Greg and look at me. I am highly emotional. I am easily agitated. I don't like a lot of people.
He's a very focused
Just look
person.
at him. He's sitting there. He's listening. He's smart. He's intelligent, and he uses his energy wisely.
Okay.
That's how he did.
But I still, with all this explanation, if you knew the depth of the research, and I'm not trying to flatter you, but it's a fact, you knew everything about all the players. You knew everything what they went through for 10 years before.
So Greg, from your perspective, because I'm also interested from the science side of things, but from your perspective, was it your idea, or did the Wall Street Journal come to you and say, "Hey, we need to write a book. You're the guy,"
I don't think.
or was your idea to do this? And then how did you even begin the process, and how long did it take you?
Yeah, so it was my idea. The journal, I love the journal, they love me. But when it comes to book writing, I'm on my own. Even my publisher didn't come to me and ask me to do it. It was my passion. And I love the theme of unexpected characters doing something, changing the world, some huge achievement. It shouldn't have been them. And that struck me early on. So the first company, and I wrote about them for the Wall Street Journal, the first company that emerged as a front runner was this company, Moderna. And Moderna, no one had ever really heard of outside of the world of biotech. And in the world of biotech, people had skepticism of them. They were kind of seen as exaggerating their capabilities. They never had any vaccine or drug. Their CEO was somebody people accused of.
Is he the Frenchman? The French?
Exactly. Stéphane Bancel. Exactly. So that struck me kind of early. And we're talking the spring, summer of 2020. Well, why should it be Moderna? Where's Merck? Where's Sanofi? Where's GSK? Where are the vaccine giants? And it appealed to me. That theme appealed to me. And then I threw myself into this thing. And I don't know, family members told me not to do it. Other people said, why are you wasting your time? What if there's no vaccine? What if there's no effective vaccine? You're going to waste a lot of time. And I figured at the least I've learned about a new area. It's been interesting to me. And if I get lucky, and we all get lucky, and these vaccines work, thank you. There's my baby there.
No, but there is your baby, and it's a fat baby.
Another healthy, chubby baby. Another difference between Greg and I is I would have said
300 something like 30 pages.
I would have said someone else is going to write this book, and then I would have said to you, Karmela, I said, should I write the book on the vaccine? And you would have said, Joel, this is ridiculous. Someone else is writing this, and stay at your safe little job at CBS making 21 cents a day.
That's what my kids told me.
Oh.
Yeah, my kids told me not to do it. That's kind of partly why I did it too. Yeah. I like sort of a challenge, and it was the hardest thing, probably the hardest thing I ever did. On average, I went to bed at 3 a.m. That was sort of my average. I would be taking showers at like 2:30 before I went to bed. 3. And
I'm really interested, and I'm curious. So, walk me through your day in writing this book. What time do you wake up, and what part of this is you?
Listen, anything you don't feel comfortable discussing, tell him it's totally off the limit.
I'm not going to ask about the shower, but what part of this are you researching on the phone? What part of this are you writing? What part of this day are you thinking? Take me through a day in the life of writing this book.
Sure. And I don't mind talking about it because I'm a journalist, so I expect others to be open with me. So I have to be open with others. So on average, I'd wake up, let's say around 8:30, and I would juggle interviewing potential sources. So let's say I need to learn about this company, BioNTech. They're in Germany. I can't get there. I had a flight scheduled to go to Germany, but they're locked down. We're locked down. Everybody's locked down. So I have to somehow figure out the story, get to the people. This is a company that is changing the world and developing this vaccine. Ugur Sahin is the founder, an interesting character, an immigrant from Turkey to Germany. He's got this approach that seems to work. I have to understand everything about this guy. Who did he grow up with? Who did he go to school with? What was he like? Personality traits, stories. I got to paint scenes. I got to develop scenes. So a good chunk of my day is emailing and sometimes texting and calling and asking anybody and everybody who ever had any contact with this guy, Ugur Sahin, if they'll talk to me. Will you talk to me? Spend a few minutes with him. Well, I don't know, Greg, what's your goal here? They're suspicious a little bit, or sometimes they're eager. So a chunk of my day is just setting up future interviews. A chunk of my day is conducting interviews, talking to people that had already agreed. I would do on average a day, somebody who dealt with Stefan Bancel, Moderna, someone who was a government scientist, that kind of thing. So I would talk to 2-3 people a day. And then a chunk of the day is going through those interviews and seeing what's worthwhile and what's interesting and what I can use for my book. And then a chunk of my day is writing. So there's a lot to do. And writing is rewriting. So in my world, every single paragraph you see has been rewritten a few times, and I've struggled with it, and I've been neurotic about it, and have had difficulty with it, and I've changed it, and I've corrected mistakes. But yeah, that's why it takes. So then I'd go to bed. I'd work until 2:33 in the morning. Yeah.
At the risk of showcasing my true ignorance, do you have to show it to the people that you write about?
No.
It's a great question. So I don't have
question,
to.
Joel.
No, it is a great question. At the Wall Street Journal, we don't ever share what we've written. But we have an ethos of no surprise journalism, and I'm a big believer in no surprise journalism. Not everyone practices it, but we do. And I'm a Wall Street Journal reporter for 25 years. And what that means is no one is ever surprised by what we write. So I'm not going to send you a full chapter, but I'm going to share bullet points, themes, things that you need to be aware of. So that helps me. In that, it creates much more work, but it gets me out of trouble because somebody could see something that's wrong. Someone could see, yes, Greg, you got this right, but you need to be aware of something else, perspective that I didn't necessarily have. So I do share a lot of my writing or what I'm going to say with my subjects. Yeah.
But because of the timeliness of this, I assume just the way the scientists felt pressure to, deadline type pressures, I'm sure you had an immense pressure put on yourself to do this as quickly as possibly, as accurately and as well informed as possibly.
Yeah, listen, these questions are reminding me of the difficulties I went through, the trauma I went through. It was very difficult. There were a few near nervous breakdowns. I may seem calm, but there were rough patches there just because frankly, I took on a lot. I didn't have to write about all the vaccine companies, but I wanted to because each story is an interesting one in my view. So there's smaller companies like Novavax I write about. I didn't have to write about them. I don't know if I can speak for Karmela, but I find their story fascinating. They were a little dinky company in Maryland. They were about to go bankrupt at the beginning of 2020. They had a few months left of cash. Employees were sending resumes out. And they were selling at like $2-3 a share, but they said, "Hey, we think we can develop a vaccine." So I thought they had an interesting story. So I was under deadline pressure, which is why I had to squeeze every moment of the day out.
And again, from Karm's up next, but real quick, from kind of the day that you said I'm going to do this to the day this book went to the printing press, how long a period of time was that?
It's a good question. I, in my mind, decided I was going to do it September or August of 2020. I got an official book deal maybe January of 2021. So, and I passed it in August of 2021. It sounds kind of unlikely, and I'm not sure how I did it, frankly. And I did it by having close to 3 nervous breakdowns. So that's the only way I could do it. Yeah.
I feel so much better knowing I'm not the only one. If you ever want to break down together, let me know. Karm?
No, I forgot. See, every session I have a senior moment because he doesn't let me ask when I remember.
Well, I didn't forget. So
no. But I wanted to say, you mentioned Novavax, right? Novavax.
Yeah.
Now, am I like? I try to understand even the technological things that you write about, the mRNA is all about, and the genetics and all that. So is Novavax the one that did not use the mRNA?
Good, very good memory. Right. So basically, there are 5 efforts that I write about, 5 vaccine efforts. There's Moderna and Pfizer, which are mRNA, which is messenger RNA. I can discuss what that is, but it's a molecule. They use this molecule, mRNA. There's J&J, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca in Oxford, and they use a virus to transport their vaccine. That's called an adenovirus. And then there's this company, Novavax, which uses a protein. Basically, they create a protein in the laboratory, and that protein is the spike protein of the coronavirus. So yeah, they use a different approach. They're not out yet, but they're coming soon, and it's it looks like a very effective vaccine, but very good memory, Carmine.
Karm's trying to show off. I want to back.
I am not trying. I am.
At least you read the book there.
I will read it, I promise.
Yes.
It might take me till 2037, but I'll do it.
Okay.
But I want to take a half step back. So again, and I brought this up earlier, the world is kind of going to hell in a handbasket. Everyone is at home quarantining. People don't know what's going on. It's our first real pandemic in all of our lifetimes. Yeah. How did the science world, how does this start? Like, what is the catalyst? What's the starting point for this effort? Because it seems when you think of the big moments in history, 9/11, the cleanup effort, or other historical moments, you can kind of wrap your head around it. But how did the world come together, the science world, I'm saying, to do this?
They didn't.
So the underappreciated aspect of this whole pandemic and the vaccine effort is that, yeah, these vaccines were fast coming together, and yet they weren't, because there was years, as Carmine can attest, there was years of research going into these vaccine approaches. You and I weren't aware of it. It was going on behind the scenes. It was going on in labs around the world, especially in the United States, deep in the bowels of these companies and their laboratories, by stubborn scientists who believed in approaches that the experts said would not work. And my book is about that work, that those years of research. So I go back to HIV, and believe it or not, from HIV and the efforts to develop an HIV vaccine, which have not been successful, but they led to an approach. And it took them years to get anything from this approach, this adenovirus approach, but it led to the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines. mRNA, people started working on that. I go back to the late 80s. People were doing even earlier. There's a scientist named John Wolfe who's working with children with genetic defects, abnormal genetic issues in their bodies. And he was trying to help them. And he turned to this approach, and he started the ball rolling. And it's like a relay race, really, where a group of people or a scientist or two, they make work, they look like they're making progress, and then they stumble and they pass the baton to someone else. And so it appeared as if all of a sudden we had these vaccines, but frankly, there was years of work that went into these approaches that I write about. And frankly, it was dramatic. And these scientists ignored the conventional wisdom to advance these approaches. So when you ask how science came together, well, basically they said, okay, we've got this new virus, this new pathogen. How do we handle it? Well, there are these 2 approaches that people have been working on for years. Maybe they'll work. And those companies stepped up when everybody else didn't.
I guess I'm just so intrigued by the logistical effort, because I can barely figure out, time to get to the supermarket. But these people are literally like negotiating how to do this.
But the interesting thing about that, you are kind of mirroring writing this book, you are mirroring the behavior of the
Correct.
scientists.
Correct.
Because the scientists would go through sleepless nights, right? Giving up all their enjoyment, and they were almost sometimes too tough on their people, if I can generalize, the people who worked for them, because they were so intense. And if I understand your book correctly, they primary motivation or their motivation was not money.
Bullshit, but yeah. No, scientists maybe, but the company.
The scientists, I'm not talking about companies.
Money makes the world go around.
No, the Wall Street makes the world. But the thing is, do you agree that like I'm thinking of the one who BioNTech people who worked really obsessively, almost like, not
Anderson Cooper, spit the question out, Anderson.
4 hours sleep, and they really were doing it. Many of there was this Hungarian woman, I remembered her because
Karika. Yeah.
She literally did it for $40,000 a year.
I want to clarify something real quickly. I have no doubt that the scientists, it's a labor of love. I have a business. I work with biotech companies, and I've seen that firsthand. No doubt that the scientists, I believe, were doing this as a passion project, labor of love, something that they had to get done. There's no way you can tell me that the big pharma companies are not doing this for profit. Which brings me to a question I was going to ask further down the road. But one of the criticisms I hear, and I hate to divide us politically, but look, the world is divided politically. And on the right, you hear a lot of vax hesitant people, as Greg referred to them as, saying, "Oh, sure, there are signs. Well, you can get the vaccine for free, but these biotech companies are making a ton of money." How much money are these biotech companies, the Modernas and Pfizers of the world, making as a result of this?
Oh, they're making tens of billions of dollars in profit right now. But to your point, listen, I think we as people like to categorize and generalize and label others. It's a problem on the right and on the left. Mm-hmm. So there's Wall Street, evil Wall Street, and evil big pharma. Listen, I think people have mixed motivations in life. You can want to be rich and famous.
Hey, Greg, your video popped off.
Your video is off.
Okay, here we go. Hold on one second.
Here we go. We're back.
Listen, do they want to be rich and famous? Sure, but they also want to help people, and they're mixed motivations. And as Karmela said, there are serious-minded researchers at each of these efforts that just want to help. And going back to your earlier point, Karmela. I'm in some ways there are similarities. I went all out and they went all out, but they're saving lives. I'm not. I'm writing about people who are saving lives, and some of them are psychologically damaged. Even these billionaires, and I've talked to them because they've gone all out. They haven't been able to rest really. They are criticized by many in society for the profits that they've made, and I think we need to give them a debt of gratitude. This is science's greatest achievement, modern science's greatest achievement. They've stepped up and saved lives. And are they getting wealthy along the way? Yeah, but I'm a capitalist. I think that's okay. It's okay to have some incentive to be wealthy as long as you're helping others.
What about the scientists, though? Are they making money? I'm talking like the bench scientist. Your video's back off, Greg. I just want to...
A second there.
No worries. Yeah. What about the bench scientists?
Those who have shares in their companies have done well. I wouldn't say they're getting rich or famous. And frankly, that's part of why I focus on a lot of them, the unheralded researchers who don't get a lot of credit. I try to do that in my book because a lot of them produced approaches and methods that have really saved lives. But I don't know. I think it's easy to sort of characterize executives as evil and all that. They're no more evil. There's the same percentage, I think, same percentage of accountants that are evil, same percentage of Wall Street financiers and pharmaceutical companies. There's some that are, definitely. And we write about them. I write about them. I've been very critical of some companies, but they're well-meaning people in all these industries that just want to help and put food on the table for their kids and get rich and famous, and that's fine too.
I want to underscore one thing. So prior to this whole pandemic, the average vax took about 10 years. You mentioned mumps took 4 years to develop. COVID took only 1 year, and in large part, it's what we've been talking about, which is this mRNA technology. So for the people out there, and to me, this is like cryptocurrency. Everyone, quote unquote, knows about the vaccine, but no one knows about the vaccine. No one really understands it. So, Greg, in layman's terms, what is this mRNA, and how did it kind of change the world?
Sure. So messenger RNA is a molecule. We all have it inside of us. We have DNA, and DNA has the instructions, genetic instructions. I think people know DNA from the O.J. Simpson trial, mostly or partly. So DNA cannot do anything without mRNA. DNA needs help to create proteins. Proteins keep us alive. The proteins that are necessary. So basically, mRNA, messenger RNA, is a molecule that takes instructions from DNA within the cell to the part of the cell where proteins can be created. It's a messenger. It takes these instructions. So we always knew that we had these mRNAs inside of us. We all depend on them, where they're crucial for us. And the dream was always, in the world of science, well, what if we could create mRNA in a lab? In other words, you have sugar, but you have synthetic sugar. And the same kind of thing. You have molecules. You can create molecules too. So the scientists always said, well, what if we could create a molecule, a messenger RNA molecule, in the laboratory and inject it in the body and tell the body to make any protein we want it to make? Couldn't we make the body into like a vaccine factory, make our own body into a vaccine factory? Why do we need to spend tens and billions, hundreds of billions on my Zoom video?
Greg,
here.
your head is also cut off.
Okay.
Your head is.
All right. How's that better now?
Now
I get it.
Greg, I'm not the only one getting yelled at. I'm not the only one getting yelled at.
Animated here. So anyway, that was the holy grail, creating mRNA vaccines and or drugs in the laboratory. And then just as quickly as people got excited about them, people said, yeah, don't waste your time on mRNA, because this molecule I told you about is very short-lived. It gets cut up and destroyed by the body's enzymes, the cell's enzymes, within moments. So you know all those people that say, oh, I don't want mRNA in my body, it's going to change my DNA, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't. It gets cut up and destroyed within moments, which is why the experts always said, don't waste your time with mRNA, because it doesn't last long. And that's why most scientists said, we're not going to spend any time on mRNA, except for a few stubborn people that I write about in my book. And they said, what if we could figure out a way to get around the body's immune system, its defenses, and get into the cells, create a protein, and then be out of there? And that's what these mRNA vaccines are. They create a protein. I'll ask you, Joel, what protein would the mRNA vaccines be making?
What protein would they be?
What protein? If the whole thing is to make a protein, take a guess. If we're talking about this virus, this coronavirus, what's the protein?
The antibody protein that kills the virus.
Well, we want to create the spike protein.
Oh, spike protein. Correct.
We all hear about.
Yeah,
that is like the key part of this virus.
Yeah, which brings us to like Omicron, because now I think there's 30 mutations on there. But our mRNA, yeah. But I mean, that, to your point, with now we're all talking about Omicron.
For a minute,
mRNA can pivot to stem that from having the virus spread, correct?
It can, yes. So mRNA, again, is just this molecule you create it in the lab, and it's based on, it's a vaccine that basically sends a message to the body. And that's what a vaccine is. What is a vaccine? It's just an education for the body's immune system. We're educating, we're introducing, we're teaching the immune system about some pathogen, some virus, with a piece of that virus. And in this case, it's the pieces that spike protein. So we're teaching the body, we're saying, hey, immune system, let me introduce you to this protein, this spike protein. So in case you ever see it again, go after it. It's foreign, it's harmful, go take it on. And we can create a new vaccine anytime we want with mRNA based on however the virus changes. We can change the chemicals of this mRNA to teach the body about the little variations, the little variants of this new spike protein. It takes a few months, but they can recreate these vaccines and adjust them accordingly.
Omicron, I just read it today. I think a headline that it it is the present day booster shots work on Omicron?
It's a little early to know for sure. So far, the early indications are good that if you get boosted, and I got boosted last week, you should be okay against Omicron. We're not sure yet. And so I don't want to be definitive about it, but it looks like a booster.
You got your third booster?
My third shot, a booster, my third shot, yes.
What are you, competitive? You worried he got his fourth already?
I'm worried he got his fourth and I'm only on my third.
Greg, to that point, how long are we going to be getting these boosters for?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm going to guess these become yearly shots and that the coronavirus is not going away. So it's going to keep changing and we're going to have to keep changing these vaccines. But before you get too discouraged, I think we're going to get to the point where we're going to have an all-in-one. So you go in and you get a COVID vaccine every year, but they roll in like flu vaccine in there as well. Maybe they throw something else in there. But I do think we're going to have to stay ahead of this thing. And just like flu, there's a new flu season. There'll be a new coronavirus season, and we're going to update these vaccines.
Karm, once again, your hand is raised.
I learned early that this is the only way I can.
I like Greg's energy, by the way, because he's definitely, he doesn't appear this way, but he is definitely type A.
Well, how do you think?
Greg, you look like you're like a marathoner to me. Do you run?
I play a lot of basketball. I play baseball. I play athletics, I guess.
So when you were writing this book, I'm always, for me, I'm more curious about what your schedule's like than what you were writing. But did you find time to exercise while writing this book?
I did. I still played. I have two softball teams in the summer, so I made sure to play. Okay. That was my only entertainment. But Karm, you had a question. I don't want to cut you off.
Now I forgot again. You see what you do. Don't worry. They always come back. Come back.
That's a good lesson for our
I know
future.
what
That's
it
good.
is. On one of your chapters, and I don't remember with the little quote above the chapter is that we don't have to worry about the humanity being destroyed by something else. It's viruses that will destroy humanity.
Yeah. So we're in an age of viruses. So this isn't the last one. We're going to have more. If you believe in global warming, and I do, we're encroaching on the animal kingdom. There are more international flights potentially spreading viruses around the world. This is a dry run. We're going to have every 5-10 years, we have a new version. We had SARS, the first SARS, we had MERS, we had other viruses, Zika pathogens that we have to deal with. So we're going to have to deal with others. But these new vaccine approaches are so effective and they're fast. So we finally have the ability to take them on. So I don't want people to be discouraged.
Quick shout out. If you listen to, I believe, our second or third podcast, the featured guest on the main Schmooze is Dr. Ronald Waldman, my dad's brother, because we were having trouble booking guests prior to that. And you may not know the name, Greg, but you probably would want to know it. He is one of the leading global pandemic experts in the world. He helped eradicate smallpox. He lived in Africa for part of the 70s. And
amazing.
Smallpox vaccine, that was a traditional vaccine. Obviously, that was not mRNA, I believe. But for your next book,
I learned something interesting also that, for example, the mumps vaccine, you only need once, right?
I believe you're right. Yes. MMR. We'll give it to children, the MMR vaccine. Yeah. All rolled into one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just brought up another question. Karm, I love to interrupt. I'm interrupting more today. Right. Children. I have a 7-5-2. Do I get soon to be 3, 6, and 8 very soon? Do I get them vaxxed? Do you feel comfortable getting your children vaxxed? I won't ask if you did or not.
My children are older. They're 22 and 18. But they've been vaxxed. But younger children, the data looks good. And frankly, quite honestly, the Delta variant has been very difficult on young children. So I understand the impulse to wait. But doctors I talk to say hospitals over the past few months have been filled with children. So one needs to be concerned about them. And the vaccine looks remarkably effective. Listen, there's risks with everything in life. And there are risks with this vaccine. I don't want to suggest otherwise. They're just very minimal. There's a risk when I get in my car later today. There's going to be a risk. Life's all about risks. So I don't want to pretend there are no risks. There are always potential side effects. You take anything. You go into surgery for anything. But they're minimal when it comes to these vaccines, thank God.
And I think that's important. You kind of led into my close to final question, which is someone comes up to Greg Zuckerman and says, I don't trust these vaccines. It's going to, 10 years from now, I'm going to grow a second head on my body. What do you tell that person?
I say that there are risks with everything. And I can't promise something won't emerge, but I know that literally billions of people have received these vaccines already, A. And B, COVID is serious. Yes, for most people, it's not a problem. But I've talked to not only people, obviously, who've lost family members. I have a neighbor who died as well. But even if you say, the odds are really low that you're going to actually die. But I know people that have long COVID. That's the thing that worries me personally. Mm-hmm. I know relatively healthy people that have been sluggish. Their brain is foggy for over a year. That's the thing that I really worry about. And so some percentage of people are going to get long COVID. And it's not something I wish on anyone. So there are risks in everything in life, but these vaccines seem very safe and effective. And the risk of COVID is substantial.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do a lot of my journalistic research on television, and I love Real Sports. It's by the way, one of the best written TV news shows. But they profiled long haulers, and I've been listening to my competition Joe Rogan a lot lately, and he always talks about how healthy he is and how much he works out and how fit, and that's why I'm not. Sick. And then he didn't really get too sick, but anyway, the Real Sports episode highlights the fact that many of these long haulers statistically are very fit females, actually. And so that's interesting. These are like Olympic runners and things of that nature who are suffering like 18 months later. So
wow, yeah.
And Rogan again is always plugging, vitamin shots and ivermectin, and I just don't think you can categorize it. I think that this, and tell me if I'm wrong, Greg, but I think the science world is still trying to figure out what this novel coronavirus is all about, and no one really knows who's going to get smacked and who's not. But I think if the vaccines are going to help you, like you said, there's a risk.
You want to hear something anecdotal?
Sure.
I'm selling your book to other people. I recommend. I have a friend whose daughter refuses to.
Sales are going to skyrocket at the Blue and Green Diamonds. At the Blue and Green Diamond.
Check it out. Yeah.
By the way, Greg, have you gone through?
But listen, I told her let her daughter read this book because the way you wrote it, you had no agenda. You had no hidden agenda. You just described how it evolved over a long period, the creation of the thing, how it evolved during a long period of time, and how the actual vaccine works. And you explained it in a layman terms, no, mumbo jumbo or scientific mumbo jumbo. And I think people should read it because one of the fears that educated people have is that it stays in your system. And that's to me very reassuring that it flies out of your system, So.
Right. Listen, it's a great point you made. So I've been on Fox a few times. I love talking to people that are a little vaccine hesitant. And I think when you read my book, you become reassured. It wasn't really my goal. I'm a storyteller. I want to tell an accurate story. But yeah, I don't have an agenda. And neither do the people within these labs, within these companies. They're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're independents. They believe in science and healing people and getting changing the world kind of thing. So people should be reassured, I think, by reading the book, and that it was years of work that went into these approaches, and it wasn't done overnight. They didn't cut corners. It wasn't rushed. So I do believe that people should be reassured by reading this book.
Greg, a question with a very simple, short answer, unrelated to all this, but related. What do you think of the current state of journalism in our world? Encouraged, discouraged?
I'm encouraged. My colleagues and I think we're working as hard as ever. Listen, I think there's a new appreciation for journalism in the age of Donald Trump, before Trump, post-Trump. As Donald Trump said, we're going to miss him. He said when he's gone, and he helped subscriptions for the Journal, for the Times, for Washington Post, for media in general. So in some ways, he was a boon to us all, and there's a new appreciation for us. But there's also more criticism than ever. People are more likely to say fake news, to criticize, to insult me and my colleagues more than ever. So that's dangerous as well. And listen, we're not faultless. We don't do things properly. We miss things left and right. We got the 2016 election wrong, and we need to, and we've tried to improve, but it's not clear we have. There are all kinds of reasons to criticize us, just like you can criticize Fauci, you can criticize healthcare officials. That's fine, bring it on. But let's work together. Let's have some constructive criticism. We're not faultless and blameless, but I think we're well-meaning. And my colleagues and I are, as are the healthcare officials. And I encourage people to reach out. Some of my best sources are people that started off very critically with me, sending me an email, ripping into some story I've written. And sometimes they're right, and I can learn from it. So I embrace that.
And are you sort of like the expert on because of the book you wrote, are you like the expert on vaccinations? Because the other day, I get the online New York, Wall Street Journal, and I saw this article by an Alicia Finley.
Oh yeah.
And she wrote the vast promise of mRNA technology. Now I was thinking, did she take all this information from Greg?
A few people emailed me on that.
Really?
She's a colleague on the editorial side, so it's a different world. And I don't know how she or other people operate, but a lot of that history is in my book, and I'm excited about the future, like she is. What mRNA can take on next, cancer, whatever it is. There are new approaches that they're applying to other viruses, pathogens, diseases. So like Alyssa, I'm excited about the future too.
I don't want to end on a depressed.
No.
Go ahead, Carm.
I have one very last question. After this, I enjoy this tremendously. Joel always says, every time he says we are finishing up, I always interrupt and speak for a long time. So I'm going to do it before. I truly enjoy this, and I learned some new things, definitely. And I, of course, learned a ton from the book. And thank you for writing the book. And I have one last question. Are you writing a sequel?
I'm not writing a sequel. I'm going to update the book at some point with Omicron and those kinds of things, the new variants. But no, I'm still recovering from this experience, and I'm talking to people. I'm giving a lot of speeches about the book, and I love talking to people that are pro and also anti-vaccine. So some in my audience it's always some tough question from someone who's wary. And I like meeting people. And that's a lot of what I'm doing now, giving speeches around the country related to my book, Shot to Save the World.
We appreciate that you did it for us.
The next book is called Heroin, A Shot to Save Greg Zuckerman. So Carm tells me, and this might be totally, so I just actually lost a good friend who freelanced quite a bit at the Wall Street Journal, Josh Mitnick. I don't know if you know the name. He was a Middle East correspondent.
Yes, of course. That's so sad. It's tragic.
But Carm tells me you knew Daniel Pearl, who's a guy I think about pretty frequently, actually.
I mean, I didn't know him personally. I was there at the time. He was based abroad and I was in New York, but everyone knew him. He was a superstar and a hero and of blessed memory. Yeah.
Oh,
we associate the two of them. Anyway.
But let me end this on an uplifting note. That was kind of depressing, but I thought about it because on Yom Kippur services, when I was working at Fox News in D.C., I went to a synagogue, the Chabad there, and every Yom Kippur, the rabbi would make it a point to mention Daniel Pearl as being a righteous, Jew.
He totally was. Yeah. I mean, he died saying, I am a Jew. I'm a Jew and my father's a Jew, I think, right?
Yeah. And he wasn't really observant.
No, but he's a proud Jew, and we should all be proud of our own heritage, whoever we are. No reason not. We should embrace it. I often find that there's a hesitancy, there's a nervousness about embracing one's heritage. There's no reason not to be proud.
100%. Right. And Greg, the good news is you said it yourself. This was a feeling out, a testing period. We can all eagerly await the next pandemic and your next book.
Let's hope there isn't one, but hopefully we're better prepared.
And we thank you very much. Wait, we have to show people the book.
A Shot to Save the World. This is Greg Zuckerman's baby right here. Do you sleep with the book?
I do not. I sleep with my earlier books.
Have you Have you gone out somewhere, a beach, anywhere, and seen someone reading the book, and you're like, "Wow, this is awesome"?
It's not a beach weather in New Jersey.
It could be. I have not. I've had friends though who have seen that. I had someone who was at the dentist, and their dentist or someone working in the office was talking about the book, and he's like, "Hey, that's my buddy's book." So that kind of stuff is fun. I love that. But I haven't. It just came out a couple months ago, or a month and a half ago. So I'm hoping to bump into someone who's actually reading it. But either way, it was a good experience.
Anyway, we will.
A last quick question, a shameless plug. Of the 30 million podcasts you just did about your book, where do you rank this one?
I'd say number 2 or 3, maybe.
Just don't say Rogan is number 1. Just don't say Rogan is 1.
Well, I haven't done them yet, so we'll see if I ever do it. Rogan. No, this was a lot of fun.
It just
this
proves
was great.
that if you haven't done him yet, it proves he's an idiot.
Exactly. All right, Greg. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
That was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks,
All right.
Wellness.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right
Bye.
back with the new
Have a
Schmooze.
stay well, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Greg. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
Remove it.
Remove what?
This what you
Now you're
just
caught on
did.
a hot mic again.
I know I'm on a hot mic. What you did since we hung up with
Greg, you're talking about the intro. You're mad about the intro still.
Yeah, I'm mad about you talking about yourself, about your dog urinary tract. And it's like you belittle the people who come and who are...
No, I don't. I humanize everything.
It's not humanizing, it's regressing everything.
No, it's not regressing. It's humanizing.
All right.
I think you need to trim your eyebrows, but who am I? The new
These
schmooze.
are not my eyebrows. They were drawn there by my hand.
Well, a few of the actual remaining hairs are sticking out at a perpendicular
All right.
angle. Republicans are less likely now than they were in the past to say they are confident in the accuracy of important medical advice that their doctors give them. This is in line with what Greg was talking about. Currently, 60% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents are confident, down from 73% in 2010 and 70% in 2002. Meanwhile, more Democrats and Democratic leaners are confident now, 71%, than were in the past, especially compared with the 62% measured in 2002. I just read this, so I kind of
who was spitting on this before, because you're almost following it when
Carm,
you
please
talk.
don't interrupt the news schmooze.
All right.
There's a vaccine we just learned. I'm fine. Are you surprised that Republicans are now less trusting of medical advice from doctors than previously?
They should change doctors. It's very important to trust your doctor. Find a doctor you can trust.
By the way, the guy that's going to fix my knee, his name is Dr. Best. I looked him up last night. I'm going to call and make an appointment. On to the next story. CNN President Jeff Zucker told the network staffers this past week that former host Chris Cuomo, who for full disclosure is I would say he's a friend of mine, but we are friendly acquaintances. Jeff Zucker said that Chris Cuomo, and I quote, deserved termination and won't be paid any severance according to reports. Cuomo has lawyered up for $18 million, hiring the same attorney that Megyn Kelly hired when she walked away from NBC with a paltry $69 million. I bring this story up for a reason, Karmela.
I bet you're going to bring it back to yourself.
100% not. 100% not. What
Thank
I'm going
you.
to say is there are levels, right? Chris Cuomo said he was helping his brother. I didn't really have so much of an issue with that. And I don't think people had an issue with that. But what happened was a little more information came out and sexual misconduct allegation, which is very important to delineate, came out. And then Jeff Zucker, little squirrel, ran into the corner and immediately fired their top personality. The reason I discuss it and I mention it is because journalists it's not really about the journalistic ethics, in my opinion. It's about who's got to cover whose ass and save whose ass. And
I have a
suddenly,
statement.
I know you will. And suddenly, when the Twitter sphere drums are banging loud, there's all this pressure. But outside of the quote unquote media elite world, do you really think anyone gives a shit that Chris Cuomo defended his brother? And now he's lost his career. And look, I'm all for hating on everyone in news and wishing them ill, but except for Greg Zuckerman and really Chris Cuomo. But do you think this was just and fair?
I thought when I came to this country,
Oh boy.
I thought that
Spit
you
it out,
are
Anderson
innocent
Cooper.
until proven guilty. And you are not, be careful about you are not supposed to be condemned in the court of public opinion, and that's what's happening today. People are fired because somebody said that they reached up their skirt or whatever they did, and nobody. There is no court case. There is no. Just on the basis of this statement, people are accused. If I mean, God forbid it could happen to everybody.
Alan Dershowitz is suing CNN for $300 million and came out and said that Jeff Zucker should be the one who was fired. And I don't know that that's not true, but the interesting thing is Jeff Zucker and Chris Cuomo are very good friends until this. But what does Jeff care more about? Money or Chris Cuomo?
All right, Joel. I am not entering the psyche of either. They don't deserve my attention. I have to save it for bigger and better things.
On to story number 3. Many people travel to get away from it all, and I wish I could, but I'm trapped and I'm stuck. A few travel to get away and then walk their way back. That's the idea of Get Lost, an ultimate adventure challenge that spirits travelers away to a mysterious destination and then leaves them alone in the middle of a remote landscape. Depending on the location and duration of the distantly supervised trek, the cost can start around $10,000 and veer into 6-figure territory. The luxury travel company behind this is called Black Tomato. They introduced the concept, a kind of a blind date for vacations with survivor elements back in 2017. But now, with the focus on isolation during the pandemic, this company has taken off. My question to you, would you book a trip where you're just dropped off in a random, isolated location, Karm?
Yeah, especially me, a control freak, where I don't know where I am or what's going on.
You try not to grunt so aggressively on a live microphone.
Why not? When you are 82, you can do
Rush
that.
Limbaugh had lung cancer and didn't do that.
Rush Limbaugh, they couldn't do it because of his lung cancer. He couldn't have the strength to do that.
What do you think happened to his golden
microphone?
Yeah.
It was melted down into rings.
His excellence and brought his EIB golden mic. Tony, one day you're the biggest...
The top of the world, and the next thing is you are under it.
You're under the world. We'll be right back with 3 questions for Grandma. And these are good ones today. Right back.
Okay, do it already.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
You enjoying the show? Are you enjoying the show so far? It's hard to say. Sounds like shofar. What does that mean?
That's a saying in Hungarian.
Say that again.
Az ipapai papnak papipája van, így tehát az ipapai papipipa papipa.
What does that mean?
Nothing. It basically means that the priest from Ipapa has a pipe, and so hence it's the Ipapai priest's pipe.
I'm pleased with this podcast. I wonder if the video is working. I wonder if the audio is working.
We never know. Grant leaves us the suspense. That's the guy who owns the
It's our studio engineer. Okay, on to 3 questions for Grandma. And I thought these were really good ones. And there's a special one in here today. First question comes from ZZ Bugs, who we're going to start to get on the podcast.
Who is 6-year-old.
She's 5.
In January 3rd, she will be 6. Don't make her so
She's
young.
5.
She's 6.
She asks Grandma, how does tape on the other side get sticky?
There are double stick tapes also.
She wants to know how just one side is sticky. Don't change the question.
Okay. Because in the factory, they put glue on one side of the tape, they know how to do it without putting too much or too little. They have a machine that puts a little glue on one side of the tape and nothing on the other side of the tape. So what you get here is you can stick things together. I just did it today here for this piece of paper here that I stuck to my page here. Here is
a Post-it, you're saying?
Yes. And
you know what I think about when I hear this question? I think about the man who invented the equipment that makes the one side of the tape sticky and the vast wealth he must have from the patent.
Well, of course. But here is to throw a wrench into it. I have to do this. There are tapes that are sticky on both sides.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
Go ahead.
On to the second question from my darling Vita Aaliyah, known to the world as the People's Champ. Why do dogs sniff each other's dog butts?
I think this question was asked earlier.
Sometimes they are redundant.
Let's remember it was, and I'm not revisiting it.
Do you have I think it's pheromones?
That's a greeting.
But what are they sniffing for? I think it's like pheromones. They want to know if they're friendly, if they like the smell.
I have no idea, and you are very regressed again. Go ahead to the third one.
The vet did ask me last night if Mabel was licking her vagina often.
Joel, you cannot do this. I am not going to do. It's not because...
It was a question from a doctor about
I know, but it doesn't have to be on a podcast where we discuss serious things.
Well, coming up...
I'm telling you, I insist you take this out.
Carm, there is no chance I'm taking this out. We can fight about it till the end of time.
Nobody will like this.
So we do these, everyone will love it. We do these questions early in the morning before the kids go to school.
If you don't cooperate.
And Vita, ZZ Bugs, and Judah come into my bed. And today, Judah, for the very first time, who's 2.5, going on 3, who's starting soccer next week, said, I have a question. And much like you, it must be hereditary. He raised his hand, and I called on him. And he said, why was Mabel bleeding?
That's an excellent... You see how intelligent he is? Takes absolutely after his grandparents.
I thought it was really beautiful that he got involved. And not only that, he asked about his sister.
Yes, the dog sister.
And I told her she had a little cold and she's getting better with medication.
Yes. Now he will worry every time he hears he has a little cold.
Carm, we have stuff to discuss that's going to be heavy after this. And I don't have an answer, which is what worries me the most.
I love you. Let's
Love you, America. We'll be back next week. Remember to hit subscribe on YouTube.
America, have no fear. I'm going to make him clean this up. This is gross.
Surviving the Survivor on YouTube. There's no chance I'm cleaning any of this up. Love you. See you next week.
Love you. Bye.